You have three terms here, and we're really only starting with this little screencast to understand what's behind comparative advantage. And once we understand that, we'll see how you achieve specialization and what the advantages of specialization are. It's useful to have the definitions in hand of comparative advantage and absolute advantage. These are in your textbook and also reproduced here. So here we have a table of how long it takes each person to do each task or produce each service. Now this assumes one is better at web updates and one is better at bicycle repair. So these numbers are rather arbitrary and they are just used to illustrate that point. Now we're going to move that from that to the next table, which is in your book. And that is the table of opportunity costs. Now it's fairly simple in terms of the numbers to go from one to the other, but if you haven't done this before, it might not jump out at you what's going on. So let me just take a minute, because we're going to use this lower table or tables like this quite a bit. And so once you get this in place, it's fairly simple then. And again, the whole idea is fairly simple, but you can trip up if you don't do this systematically. So, all right. So we're interested here in the idea of one web update for each individual. So we'll start with Mary. Well, it takes her 20 minutes to do a web update, but only 10 to do a bicycle repair. So in the time that it takes her to do one web update, she could have done 2 bicycle repairs. Hence, the 2 is in terms of the next best use of her time. By using the same reasoning, you could get Paula's opportunity cost for web updates, which is 1 bicycle repair, and then you just go the other direction to get the opportunity costs of bike repairs, that is, what you're giving up in terms of web updates. So that's really all there is to that. Now here we have one other table, and that is the table of hourly output. And sometimes the numbers will be presented to you in this form. So in other words, you won't even have the production times. So you might not even have that. And all you'll have to work with is the hourly output. So you're going to want to get used to how that works here. Again, the arithmetic here is fairly straightforward. So if it takes Mary 20 minutes to do a web update, and where did we get that from? Well, that's the information we started from. Well, in an hour. So that is in terms of the hourly output. She can do 3 updates in an hour. That is, Mary can do 3 updates an hour. Now, Paula, it takes her a half an hour, and therefore she can do 2 updates in an hour. That's for Paula. And then you can go from that information to the table of opportunity costs as well. So, for instance, from the hourly output table here, in an hour, Mary can do 3 updates, 6 bike repairs. So every time she does 1 web update, it's costing her 2 bike repairs. And then for Paula, every time she does 1 web update, it costs her 1 bike repair. So let's go back to Mary again. So one way you can always see this is, so for instance, for her to do 1 web update, then, well, okay, in the table it's 3, and then to do how many compared to x, 3x equals 6, and then x equals 2. And so therefore we get the opportunity cost there as 2, which we know from the previous slide. So in other words, the opportunity cost to produce 1 is 3, so x is 6. It's just simply ratios. So 3 web updates compared to 6 bicycle repairs. Well, 1 web update is to how many bicycle repairs? So you can do it as 3 to 6 is 1 is to x, 6 equals 3x, x equals 2. So 2 is the opportunity cost of 1 web update, 2 bicycle repairs. And we know that's the case from the previous slide. So you can go from the production times directly in this table to the table of opportunity costs we had on the previous page. Or you can go from hourly output here to that table of opportunity costs. So that's how these 3 tables in the book relate. And so once you have that down, then the information given in any of the tables, you can get the other one.